Number 87 gives us this expression to factor, and unlike some of the earlier problems where it gives you some instructions on how to factor it, it just says to use a general factoring strategy, whatever you think will work best. So we're going to approach this kind of going down that factoring tree that we talked about in class to see what the best method is. Well, the first thing we always look for is a GCF, a greatest common factor, and looking at this, I can actually take an A out of everything. And I'd be left with a 12x squared minus 23xy plus 10y squared. Now looking at this, there's really not anything we can do as far as a perfect square trinomial goes. We've already taken out the A, there's not another GCF. The perfect square trinomial won't work because remember, for the perfect square trinomial to work, the first and last term should be able to be written as something squared without having to use fractions or square roots or anything. And I can't do that as is. So that's going to be a no-go, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to instead do either guess and check or do the splitting the middle term TPTS to factor this. Because both the first and last term, 12 and 10, are not prime numbers, I recommend doing TPTS, splitting the middle term and factoring by grouping. Remember the way we do that is we look at these numbers, 12 times 10, we multiply them to get 120. And then I start writing factors of 120, 1 and 120, and remember I want them to add to our target sum, the middle number, negative 23. So 1 and 120 is not going to do that, 2 and 60 isn't, 3 and 40 isn't, 4 and 30 isn't, 5 goes into 120, you can do a little long division off to the side if you need to. 24 times, so 5 and 24 isn't going to do it. 6 and 20 isn't going to do it. 7 isn't going to work. 8 will work, 8 and 15, and I think those are the numbers we want, 8 and 15. Because if we want them to multiply to positive 120 and add to negative 23, we can put negatives on both of those, and those are what I refer to as our magic numbers that we're going to use. Now remember, if we're doing TPTS, if we're going to split the middle term, we basically copy down what we've already written, equal signs here, 12x squared, but we split this middle term into either negative 8xy minus 15xy or the other way around, negative 15xy minus 8xy. I'm just going to leave it as is. Okay, so I just rewrote it, splitting the middle term. Now I'm going to factor by grouping. Group these two in factor, group these two in factor. So I can take out a GCF in the first two of 4x, leaving me with a 3x minus 2y. In the second two, I always recommend taking out that middle sign. So I'm going to take out a negative 2, sorry, not negative 2, negative 5y. And if I write what's left, I'd have a 3x here, because negative 5y times positive 3x would give me the negative 15xy I had before. If I took out a negative 5y, I need a negative 2y to get me back the positive 10y squared I had, because positive or negative 5y times negative 2y would give me back my positive. It's always a good thing to do in this step to check, distribute through, and just make sure you get what you had before. And we do. Now remember, factoring by grouping worked as long as these things in the parentheses agree, and they do. So we factor out that GCF, 3x minus 2y, 4x minus 5y, and that completes the factoring.